You think the New York Times makes its money the way a newspaper always has. Big front page stories, hard investigations, foreign bureaus, war correspondents, the mass advertising wrapped around the journalism, and readers paying for the news. That is the picture in your head, and for most of the paper's 170-year history, it was exactly right. But it isn't the engine anymore. Today the company earns more than 3 times as much from subscriptions as from advertising. And here is the part almost nobody sees coming. A large share of the people paying every single month are not really paying for the news at all. They are paying for a word game, a recipe box, and a sports site. Those are doing the quiet work of keeping the whole thing alive. Here's how it looks from the outside. The New York Times is a news organization. It sells journalism, and it sells the attention of its readers to advertisers. So the obvious story writes itself. Hire the best reporters. Break the biggest stories. Pull in a huge audience. Sell advertising against that audience, and charge readers a subscription on top. That was the model that built the building. For a century, the front page sold the paper, and the paper sold the ads, and the ads paid for the front page. A beautiful self-funding loop. There is just one problem with that story. The advertising half has been shrinking for 2 decades. Ever since Google and Facebook swallowed the digital advertising market, newspaper ad revenue has fallen, year after year, almost everywhere. And the Times is not immune. Look at its own numbers. In the last quarter of 2024, total advertising revenue rose by just 0.6% to about $165 million. Print advertising inside that number actually fell more than 16%. If the New York Times were still an advertising business, it would be sliding down the same slope as almost every other newspaper in the country. But it isn't sliding. In 2024, the company brought in about $2.5 billion in total revenue, up around 7%. And here is where the old story breaks. Subscriptions were about $1.79 billion of that, roughly 70% of everything the company earned. Advertising was about $506 million, only about 20%. Read those two numbers side by side. Subscriptions now bring in roughly 3.5 times what advertising does. The reader, not the advertiser, is the customer. The Times quietly stopped being a company that sells your attention and became a company that sells you a recurring bill. And inside that subscription number, the shift is even sharper. The two halves are moving in opposite directions. Print subscriptions, the physical paper landing on a doorstep, are slowly fading. In the last quarter of 2024, print subscription revenue actually fell about 7%. Digital subscription revenue, meanwhile, jumped about 16% in that same quarter, to roughly $335 million. So it isn't just that subscriptions beat advertising. It's that the digital subscription, the app on your phone, is the one line in the entire business that's growing fast. Everything the company does now is aimed at feeding that one line. The paper boy is being replaced by an auto-renewing charge on your credit card, and that charge is the most valuable thing the company owns. So where does the money really come from? Follow the subscribers. At the end of 2024, the company reported about 11.4 million subscribers, the most in its entire history. Of those, about 10.8 million were digital only. They never touch a printed paper. They pay every month for an app. Now watch what kind of subscribers they are. About 5.4 million of them were bundle and multi-product subscribers, people paying for more than just the news. That number jumped about 29% in a single year. And at the same time, the number of people paying only for the news fell, from about 2.7 million down to about 1.9 million, a drop of nearly a third. Let that sink in. The news-only subscriber, the person paying purely to read journalism, is the part that's shrinking. The bundle is the part that's exploding. And here is the figure that flips the whole assumption. By one widely reported analysis of the company's own disclosures, roughly a third of its digital subscribers do not pay for the news product at all. About a third, they subscribe for the games, for the recipes, for Wirecutter's product reviews, for the audio, for the sports coverage on The Athletic. They are paying the New York Times every month, and they are not paying for the Times. They're paying for everything around it. How did a newspaper end up here? It bought its way in. In early 2022, the company acquired a little word game called Wordle for a price its creator described as in the low 7 figures, a few $1 million. That same year, it spent about $550 million to buy The Athletic, a subscription sports site, a newspaper, spending $500 million on sports and pocket change on a daily puzzle. At the time, people asked why. The numbers answer the question. And notice the logic in those two deals. The Athletic wasn't bought for its journalism awards. It was bought for its subscribers and for sports, a topic people follow every day, all year, with the kind of loyalty hard news rarely commands. Your team plays whether or not there's a big election. Wordle wasn't bought for revenue at all, because Wordle is free. It was bought for a daily ritual that millions of people already had. The company wasn't collecting publications, it was collecting habits. Each acquisition added another reason for someone to open a New York Times app on a day when nothing important happened in the world, and that, it turns out, is worth far more than another front-page scoop. So why does this work? And why would a serious news company build its future on a word game? Because the hardest problem in any subscription business is not getting people to sign up. It's stopping them from leaving. Signing up is a one-time decision. Staying is a decision people make again quietly every month just by not canceling. And the thing that keeps them from canceling is habit. Think about a subscriber who only reads the news. What's their reason to open the app? A big story. An election, a war, a scandal. On a slow news week, they might not open it at all. And a subscriber who stops opening the app is a subscriber who, sooner or later, starts wondering why they're still paying. News, by itself, is spiky. It comes and goes with the headlines. It does not give you a reason to show up on an ordinary Tuesday when nothing much is happening. Now think about a bundle subscriber. They have a reason to open the app every single day. The crossword over coffee, Wordle on the train, and the little ritual of sharing the colored squares. A recipe pulled up at 6 in the evening, in the kitchen, deciding what's for dinner. Their team score checked at night on The Athletic. Each of those is a small daily habit, and each habit is a thread tying that person to the subscription. Cut one thread and the subscription holds. The news may be why they first signed up, but the games and the recipes are why they're still here a year later. That is the whole machine. Engagement drives retention, and retention is the business. Wordle is the clearest example of the trick. Wordle is free. Most of the millions of people who play it every day never pay the Times a cent. So why keep it? Because Wordle pulls enormous numbers of people into the company's apps, day after day, and builds the habit of opening a New York Times product first thing in the morning. A small fraction of those players eventually convert into paying subscribers, and the ones who do tend to be far stickier than someone who came only for the news. A free game is not charity, it functions like marketing. It is the top of a funnel that ends in a recurring monthly charge. You can see the strategy working in the price, too. Digital-only average revenue per user, the average the company pulls from each digital subscriber, reached about $9.65 in the last quarter of 2024, up from about $9.20 a year earlier. It's climbing, and it climbs precisely because of the bundle. A subscriber who starts on a cheap introductory rate for just one product can be nudged over time onto the full bundle at a higher price, because each extra product, the games, the cooking, the sport, adds another reason to stay and another dollar of value. The company doesn't have to win a brand new customer to grow. It can earn more from the customers it already has, simply by getting them to use more of the bundle. And this is where the economics turn beautiful for the company. Think about what it costs to add one more bundle subscriber. The newsroom is already paid for. Those reporters, those foreign bureaus, the investigations, all of that is a giant fixed cost that exists whether one person reads it or 10 million do. Wordle was already built, the recipe archive already exists. So when one more person signs up for the bundle, the company spends almost nothing extra to serve them. Their monthly payment flows, almost untouched, straight toward profit. That is why the company's adjusted operating profit rose about 17% in 2024, to roughly $455 million, even as advertising stayed flat. The growth isn't coming from selling more ads. It's coming from a growing base of high-margin, recurring subscribers, paying every month for a bundle that costs almost nothing to expand. Compare that to the old advertising model the company is leaving behind. Advertising revenue is lumpy and out of the company's control. It rises and falls with the economy, with election cycles, with whatever Google and Facebook decide to do next. A subscription is the opposite. It's predictable. It renews on its own. You can forecast it, borrow against it, build a plan around it. A company that earns 70% of its money from recurring subscriptions is simply a more stable, more valuable company than one that lives quarter to quarter on advertising. The Times didn't just change where the money comes from, it changed the kind of money it is. There's one more layer. The news is still essential, but its job has quietly changed. The journalism is what gives the whole bundle its prestige, its credibility, its reason to charge a premium. Nobody brags about subscribing to a games app. People are proud to subscribe to the New York Times. The newsroom supplies the brand. The bundle supplies the stickiness. The reporting is the reason you respect the subscription. The Wordle streak is the reason you don't cancel it. The company needs both, but it has figured out that the part which earns your respect and the part which keeps your money are not the same part. So here's what the New York Times really is. Not a newspaper that bolted on some games to survive. It's a daily habit subscription business that happens to contain one of the best newsrooms in the world. The headline is what draws you in. The puzzle is what keeps you paying. And the company has been completely open about where it's going. Back in 2020, it set a public target of 15 million subscribers by the end of 2027. Almost all of that growth coming from digital and the bundle, not from advertising and not from print. And once you can see that shape, you start spotting it everywhere. The product that hooks you is rarely the product that holds you. The thing a company is famous for is often not the thing it actually lives on. The newspaper lives on a word game. The software giant gives away the program and bills you forever for the cloud behind it. The streaming service draws you in with one prestige show and keeps you with the stuff you watch while folding laundry. The headline is the lure. The habit is the hook, the recurring bill is the business. Next time, we follow a company that gives away its most important product for free, completely free, and somehow earns billions doing it.